This week we are discussing from the chapter, hold on, not prepared. It wasn't even my crack to the end of Jenny Lawson's book, Let's Pretend This Never Happened. And I'm sad, I didn't want this book to end. In this section, Jenny Lawson's family moves from the suburbs back to a small town, and I think in a previous video I briefly mentioned the setting, but I wanted to talk about it again. The majority of books I feel like that I read take place in locations or in social situations that I cannot really relate to, such as a lot of books take place in LA or New York, or celebrity parties, or parties in general. I'm not invited to those either. And that totally doesn't mean that I still can't read those books and still enjoy them, because I do, but it's nice to read a book like this one where the location feels a bit more relatable to me. When Jenny Lawson talked about going to the gas station in her pajamas for coffee and gossip, that is what people did where I grew up, and I kind of think that way of life is looked down upon a lot these days by the media, and we're told that to be successful, we need to move to either LA or New York or some other big city. So it's nice to see someone living how I've lived and not only appreciating it, but also feeling most comfortable there. Now I want to talk about the end of the book because I was questioning how a story about a dog bite was going to sum up the whole thing, but it did. And it surprisingly did very well. And I think that was because the story was framed with Jenny Lawson and her sister sitting on the porch, and that sort of provided a segue for them to bring up other memories that had been discussed earlier in the book. And I especially really liked on the last page, page 340, when Lisa, Jenny Lawson's sister, they were talking about the memories, and she says, those are the kinds of memories that get seared into your mind for good. And then Jenny Lawson says, my God, I certainly hope so. And I made a note that that sort of went back around to the title of Let's Pretend This Never Happened, because it seems like she doesn't really want to pretend these things never happened. And she's sort of found value in these memories. So that's why I thought it was a really brilliant ending. I also want to talk about the brief epilogue after that final chapter, because at first I was not really sure what I thought about it, because I thought that the chapter before that summed up everything so nicely. When I was getting my creative writing degree, in every single class, it was drilled into our heads the idea of showing, not telling. So for example, showing somebody a sad situation and making them feel the sadness instead of just saying, it was sad, I am sad. And I wrote down that I generally agree that that is the more effective method in telling a story, but I also wrote down that I don't think it's always wrong to tell instead of show. I think that some things need to be told, if not for the sake of the audience, then for the sake of the writer, so that they can feel what they need to feel when they're writing it. Because I think that oftentimes we lose sight that writers write for themselves as well as the audience, and sometimes it can just be therapeutic and they're just getting out what they need to say. That's why I think that despite me not particularly loving that epilogue or thinking it was necessary, I understand that Jenny Lawson must have had a reason for putting it there and for maybe doing a little bit more telling than the rest of the book was showing. So I can respect that and I can accept this epilogue. I'm sure Jenny Lawson doesn't care whether or not I've accepted it or not. One thing that I did really like about the epilogue was how it showed how much Victor had changed, because like I mentioned in a previous video, I enjoy seeing sweet Victor and not always eternally frustrated Victor, and I think the epilogue showed a very sweet side of Victor there at the end. This week, let me know anything that you want to say about this book, because next week I will be reading some of your comments in the video and responding to them. So your own little personal review of the book. Also, I am finally updating the reading list in the description with the next book that we will be reading, so you can check that out. You can reserve it in the library, do whatever you want to do. So I will see you guys Wednesday.